Hello, dear students. I am Dr. Pagar, Associate Professor, Department of Geography. Dear student, I welcome all of you in this online lecture series on behalf of Maratha Vidya Prasarak Samajas, Charity Arts, BH Commerce, and AM Science, popularly known as KTHM College Nasik. Dear student, this is our class S.Y.B.Sc, semester 3rd, Geography paper first, that is Environmental Geography part first. Dear student, this is our lecture number 23, and in this lecture, we are going to discuss our third chapter, that is Environmental Problem, and its subtopic, that is Conservation of Biodiversity. Dear student, in previous lecture, we have already discussed a detailed information about the effects of loss of biodiversity. And for today's lecture, we have a very simple study objective or learning objective, that is to discuss measures for conservation of biodiversity. In previous lecture, we had already discussed about loss of biodiversity, but as today's topic is conservation of biodiversity, let's talk a little about biodiversity. Biodiversity refers to the variety of living organisms. The main aim for conservation is to protect wildlife and promote biodiversity. The biodiversity conservation is the conservation of all living things. It includes plants, animals, birds, and various microorganisms. It is important for our health, wealth, food, fuel, and the service we depend on. It plays an integral role in supporting many sectors of the development. Therefore, it is very important to conserve our biodiversity. A very simple definition of biodiversity. Let's discuss the first definition. That is, biodiversity conservation is the practice of protecting and preserving the wealth and variety of species, habitat, ecosystem, and genetic diversity on the planet. Here, we are talking about the Earth planet. If we see the definition of the conservation of biodiversity, you will observe that in this definition, one thing is very important, that is practice for protecting and preserving all the variety of the species that are available inside the ecosystem on the surface. So this about the first definition. And second definition is about the conservation of biodiversity is also very important. The conservation of biodiversity is a protection, upliftment, and the scientific management of biodiversity so as it to maintain it as a threshold level and the diverse derive sustainable benefits for the present and the future generation. So this is very important. Dear student, if we conserve this all biodiversity, then we can able to survive in the future, and also it is very useful for the future generation also. Therefore, the conservation of biodiversity is very important in today's life, in today's recent days. If we want to do the conservation of biodiversity, for that purpose, we have to apply some measures. On the basis of this measure, we can able to conserve our biodiversity. Let's discuss all these measures that are very useful for the conservation of the biodiversity on the Earth planet. The first thing is that protect the main species from the hunting or the other behavior which threaten their existence. For example, so we know that on the Earth surface we have cheetahs, leopards, and numbers of the species that being hunted for their skins. But due to this act, there is a great decrease in the number of this species, this animal. Therefore, it is very important to protect all these animals or all the species that are available on the surface. And if you do that, then yes, we can able to conserve our biodiversity, and that is very important for sustain the human being in the future. The second thing or second the measure for the conservation of biodiversity is avoid introduction of new exotic species without enough investigation and research. Yes, dear student, this is very important. Nowadays, with help of the science and technology, we are introducing the new variety of the species of the various species, but these species are not too useful for the maintaining the ecological balance. When we introduce the new species, that time there is a side impact or the negative impact on the native and the local species. Therefore, it is very important. We have to do study detail about the new variety of the species, because if we not do the proper study and get the detailed information about the new variety, if they are not useful for the maintaining the ecological balance, then you have to stop this. Otherwise, what will happen? That will be definitely going to create a damage to our biodiversity. Therefore, in this regard, this is a very important. Avoid the introduction of the new species without enough investigation and the detailed information about this new variety. Third measure is very important. Control over the exploitation of the variety of species through various organizations, government rules, and the regulation. Dear student, this is also very important. The Biological Diversity Act in the year 2002 was passed by the Indian Parliament. Such more acts should be strictly implemented if you want to conserve the biodiversity. Therefore, it is very important control of all over exploitation of the various species, because due to this act there is a side and negative effect we observe on the ecological balance, and therefore the conservation of the biodiversity in this regard is very important. Third, the next measure is that we also have to educate people on how important preservation of the biodiversity is for the planet, that is planet Earth, as well as for the humanity. Dear student, this is very important, because a small misbehavior of the human being can be damage our biodiversity, and we will lose the ecological balance that we have at some extent on the surface. So therefore, in this regard, we have to educate the people for the proper and the good behavior that will be eco-friendly with the nature and the environment. Therefore, this measure is also very important if you want to conserve biodiversity. The next one is protect those habitats, since if they are disturbed, these animals and the plant are likely to be integrated from the existence or even the coexist. So this is also very important. We have to preserve them. We have to save them. And if we don't do this action, this activity, then definitely it will be create the damage for present biodiversity. So in this regard, the conservation of biodiversity is very important. For example, in Western Ghat, such habitat should be protected, because we know that in this area, this is a very sensitive area with respect to the biodiversity. Therefore, it is our duty to protect the biodiversity in this area. So there are numbers of these hotspots are available in the world and even in India. So in this regard, we have to take care about there should not be any damage of biodiversity. Then if you do that, then definitely we can able to conserve our biodiversity. The next one is very important, that is create awareness in the people about conservation of biodiversity. The scientists and the social worker should throw light on the burning issue of the world. So dear student, we know that so in the world and even in India also, there is a numbers of the events that occur that are very harmful to the biodiversity. Therefore, in this regard, the create awareness in the people is very important. For example, on the occasion of the Biodiversity Day, that is 22nd May, the various seminar, workshop, competition should be organized to create awareness in the people. And on such occasion, college, school, university, NGO can be arranged the various or the above mentioned some activity to create the awareness in the people about the conservation of biodiversity. So therefore, this is a very important measure that we have to do in present day. Next one, that conduct the proper survey about this problem. Dear student, This is very important. Government and NGO should work together and conduct various surveys which will help in finding out which states or the area are losing biodiversity. If we are able to identify this problematic reason, then definitely at some extent we can conduct the various measures to protect our present biodiversity. If we not do that, then definitely it will create the harm for our ecological balance. And definitely it is then it will be very difficult to human being survival in such uh, area or in such environment. Therefore, in this regard, there should be conduct the proper survey to identify a problematic reason with respect to the loss of biodiversity. Therefore, this is also very important measures. Then control on the population growth. Yes, student. This is a very important thing. The population growth is a major cause for destruction of biodiversity. Therefore, the proper education should be given for population control since high school. If you do that, then we can able to control the population growth. And if we not control the population growth, then there is a continuous growth in population. And yes, to fulfill the needs of this growing population, there will be create the side effect on the environment, on the biodiversity, because the most of the people to fulfill their need, they're using this biodiversity products, and therefore that create the unbalance on the surface. So in this regard, control on the population growth is very important measure. Especially I'm talking about the developing country such as India, Pakistan, Philippines, and various the country. Here there is a continuous growth in population, and in this area there is a major problem. There is a continuous loss of biodiversity due to the increasing population day by day. Therefore, the control on this population growth is very important. If we manage this, we can able to control this population growth, then we can able to sustain this biodiversity at some extent. Otherwise, it is very important in the future to human being survival on the earth planet. The next one is very important with respect to the conservation of biodiversity, that is stop deforestation. You know that deforestation means what? The clearing of the forest area on the surface. So therefore, when we clear or cut the trees, then it will be create the damage, or it will maybe create the obstacle in the conserve of biodiversity. Then because the forests are very important with respect to the conservation of biodiversity. So deforestation is a huge problem for the variety of the species. If we lose this factor, then definitely we will also lose many species. Therefore, in this regards, the afforestation is very important. For that purpose, we have to stop deforestation. So therefore, this is also a very important measure that will be useful to conservation of the biodiversity. The next one is prevent overhunting and the overfishing. These two activities are very important if we want to conserve biodiversity. So for that purpose, we should take care about the overhunting and the overfishing. We should avoid these things. We also have to prevent overfishing and the overhunting. Since population of the many animals decline at an alarming rate, and we should protect them by setting strict hunting and the fishing limit. And for that purpose, we should create the laws. We should do such activity that should be not responsible for hunting and fishing. If we are not able to do, yes, then there is the problem to create the problem about the loss of biodiversity. Therefore, in this regard, the prevent of overhunting and overfishing is very important, dear student. And next one, a very important activity, very important measures that is useful for conservation of the biodiversity. Dear student, that is afforestation. So afforestation is why it is important, because only by stopping deforestation we can't really conserve our biodiversity? We should start by planting more and more trees. Here, it is very important. In this regard, the various NGO, the government agency, the companies, they should all do work together to create or to do the afforestation. If you do that, then definitely we can able to maintain our ecological balance, or you can say the environmental balance on the surface, and that is very useful if you want to create the conservation of the biodiversity on the surface. So in this regard, afforestation is very important. For that purpose, we have to conduct such program with help of the college, university, NGO, and various government office simultaneously together. And if we do that, then definitely we can able to preserve this all biodiversity that we have on the surface. Then next one is very important. If you want to conserve biodiversity, for that purpose, control on the pollution and the acid rain is very important. Dear student, you know that when in the last lecture we was discussing about the causes that are responsible for loss of biodiversity. In these causes, we was discuss too much about the pollution and acid rain. Here, I am talking about the especially air pollution, because due to the air pollution, there is a continuous occurrence of the acid rain, and you know that acid rain is very harmful for the plants or animals or various species that are available on the surface. If we not control this pollution and the acid rain, then definitely there will be the great loss of biodiversity that is available on the surface. Therefore, in this regard, to control on the pollution, it may be air pollution, water pollution, or the solid pollution, what type of the pollution, that pollution we should be stopped. We should be try to minimize this pollution, and if we do that, then definitely there will be the less occurrence of the acid rain and less impact on the available biodiversity on the surface. Therefore, this is very important about if you want to conserve our biodiversity. Dear students, this was about today's lecture, that was conservation of biodiversity. In next lecture, we are going to discuss a very important subtopic, that is related to the various environmental problems that we observe in India. So that problem we will discuss one by one. Still that, goodbye. Thank you.